Do you want to be creative like Cormac McCarthy? Do you want a wellspring of ideas to flow into your life and drip out of the pen? Well, today we are going to hear Cormac McCarthy talk at length on creativity, how to tap into it, and what to do with it. And if you guys don't know, my name is Ian, and here on Right Conscious, we cover everything related to Cormac McCarthy. In the playlist down below, I have over 180, yes, 180 videos on McCarthy, and that list is growing weekly. And so, hey, enough from me. Let us now hear from McCarthy. Creative work is often driven by pain. It may be that if you don't have something in the back of your head driving you nuts, you may not do anything. It's not a good arrangement. If I were God, I wouldn't have done it that way. Things I've written about are no longer of any interest to me, but they were certainly of interest before I wrote about them. So there's something about writing about it that flattens them. You've used them up. I tell people I've never read one of my books, and that's true. They think I'm pulling their leg. And so how do we transmute this pain? What do we do? What if you don't have any pain in your life? What if you've just kind of been raised and lived a normal life and you don't have this deep pain, this deep sorrow that McCarthy had? And McCarthy, from a very early age, from what I can tell, was a very sensitive individual. He was deeply impacted by some of the actions of his father and the industrialization of Appalachia more so than other kids around him. Obviously, because he wrote multiple novels just about that topic. And I don't know if he ever transcended his father trauma, because in almost every single novel, that plays a major theme. And so in the modern world, we have done a great job at numbing ourselves. We have prescription pills, social media, red dye 40, yellow dye 991. We have porn. We have a million different ways to not actually confront reality, but confront the inner worlds within ourselves, to confront these unconscious messages and the pain within us. And even worse, we've become so logical, so disconnected from nature, that our ability to turn up our spiritual awareness, to move into deeper aspects of ourself or connect with God, whatever you believe, has been severely limited. And that's where art takes place. Because if either art is taking place within and we're tapping deep within our own mind or our own inner feelings, or maybe we're like a Wi-Fi signal who trying to become stronger so that we can get a stronger signal. And this is why so many things in modern writing fall flat. There are plenty of novels that are crazy. People show me their crazy plots and their crazy characters all the time, and I'm reading them and it feels like I want to go to sleep. But in a Cormac McCarthy novel, a lot of them, there are just people wandering around, and there are a couple bad events, a couple people die, but somehow I'm entertained. Somehow these characters with no interiority are way more entertaining, way more interesting than someone's novel where there's all this crazy stuff happening and they're taking drugs or they have all these problems. And it's because that creative urge, that awareness, that exploration is not there. In our society, it's very easy to view everything horizontally. You're looking across at your neighbors, at what everyone else is doing, how many subscribers I have on YouTube right now, how many book sales I have, or how I'm writing, instead of looking up and down and within. And if you start to do that enough, you will experience depression. You will experience lower states of consciousness, even if you've had a perfect life, even if everything is okay. And McCarthy reinforces this when he said, if you don't have something in the back of your head driving you nuts, you may not do anything. Or it should be translated to, you won't write anything that's actually good. Because what does that mean, something driving you nuts? It means that there's something out there in the world, in your head, that has to be given life. It has to be realized. And if it isn't, then you're going to be the one that suffers. And people understand this feeling. But art is about being able to show with as much clarity as possible what that feeling is. And if you have something that you think is important, which is what art is, if you make me read a poem, look at your piece of art, you are saying, use your mental energy, give me your time to view this. And if it's not good, if it doesn't have a high level of clarity, then you are just a jerk for thinking and showing people. You are just trying to fill your own little ego, fuel your own abandonment issues or whatever else when you call yourself a writer or an artist. This is why Cormac McCarthy would spend at least 5, if not 10,000 hours revising every single one of his novels because he knew that this thing was so important to him that he was going to flatten it out. He was going to get every single ounce of energy out about this. This is why his first novel, The Orchard Keeper, is about all the bullshit that he was seeing his father do with the Tennessee Valley Authority and how it affected country people in Knoxville. That pain, that resentment was building up in him for decades. That's why he was so arrogant after he sent his first draft to Random House and they said, hey, we'd love to publish this, but we'd like to make some changes. And his reply wasn't, great, thank God. He was like, what changes? This novel's already perfect. Because McCarthy, from day one, understood that if he was going to step into this game, that he was going to have to compete with Faulkner, with Flannery O'Connor, and he didn't want to shoot below them. If you look at your novel, if you look at your book, and you're like, wait, and you look at it objectively, and it's not competing, it's not at least attempting to compete with the top people in your field, then what happened? Why do you think you have a place in the mix? That's your ego talking. And that doesn't mean you can't do it. That means that you need to go revise more. And so there's also now a hierarchy of ideas because when we look at Cormac, he is billowing up all this trauma in The Orchard Keeper from his father in his life. And then in Outer Dark, he starts that novel the month that he's getting divorced and his wife is taking his son away forever to Wyoming. Suttree is an autobiography of his life. Blood Meridian was inspired when McCarthy came out here to Tucson, looked around and realized that he was in an oasis of horror in a desert of boredom. You know what that does to you? Well, we now know because that's what Blood Meridian is. And so a lot of people, it's like National Novel Writing Month, and they're like, hey, I'm going to write a novel about this. And I got plenty of these. I've got plenty first drafts done or half-started novels or ideas circulating around in my head. And I'm like, is this actually good? Is this actually needed? Is it important? In 2014, I'm from Las Vegas, and I was attending school in Las Vegas. And in 2014, I got this idea that I was going to write a novel about this kind of dystopian world in Las Vegas where a sort of governmental meltdown had occurred. America didn't really exist, and the casinos in Las Vegas had taken over. And the main place that all this was happening was at Trump Tower. And back then, I had no idea what was happening in politics. I still don't really pay attention to politics because I understand that the spiritual journey and putting art out in the world is the actual thing that we should be focusing our time on. Transcendence is upstream of politics. Anyway, I've been reading too much Julius Evola over for the Substack. And so that year was so productive, and I finished 3 drafts of this novel. And then in 2015, Trump gets the nominee, or maybe in 2016, whatever year. And I have 3 drafts done. Do you guys think if I pushed hard that it would have been picked up just because its contents, just because its relevancy to Trump and all the people that hated him back then? Obviously it could have, but I was sitting there looking at it and I was like, you know what, I don't care about this. This is falling flat. The idea didn't come from anywhere good. I was like sitting in a class and we had to do a writing prompt and I just came up with it. And then I just followed it through because I just wanted to finish something and like do a couple drafts and see what that was like. So I could have cashed out, could have kept revising and probably cashed out even more. But thank God I didn't, because actually sitting up here and talking to you guys with that novel on my Amazon page, I would feel embarrassed. Because it wasn't driving me insane. It wasn't driving me nuts. I was just doing it as an exercise to see what it felt like. And so if you are not being driven crazy by things, then that means that your spirituality, your exploration of life isn't strong enough yet. That means you don't care enough about life, about yourself, about what's happening. You're not observing enough. Your vision isn't strong enough yet. And if you guys like this topic, over on the Right Conscious Substack, I release daily podcasts. I have a Cormac McCarthy course, a Cormac McCarthy book club, and 9 other book clubs. I have some of my own writing. And so if you guys would like to support this channel and talk to me in daily office hours and have more content than you probably know what to do with, go check that out over there. And if you cannot afford the Substack right now, I am starting a free writing school. It is over on school.com. The link is down in the description below. I'm slowly starting to add people. I've been adding videos. Right before this, I actually just filmed a video, and we are getting closer and closer to the launch date. And if you don't like signing up for things, I have over 400 of Cormac McCarthy's favorite books and authors in a Google Doc in a link in the description down below, alongside everything else, including Cormac McCarthy streetwear. And so enough for me. Let us get back to the video. So I didn't know this, but Cormac McCarthy doesn't read his own books. And why would you would? If you spent 8,000 hours on one of your books, you would know exactly what it was about. But if we look at the analogy one more time, what if you gathered this spiritual material, something that is so large that's driving you insane, something that's so big and monstrous, and you flattened it out? How much time does that take? And that's really a metaphor that I really like for any idea. So how big is it? Is it as big as a pencil? Is it as big as my water bottle? Or is it as big as my house? Because to smash a water bottle won't take that much time. But if it is a skyscraper and you smash it, and I assume smashing it means that you've ironed everything out and it's a beautiful artistic project and you've turned it into a simulacra on the page. You've brought the clarity of that here. And so we don't need to see that anymore. If you can do that with something monstrous, that is success. And so a lot of this is driven by pain. And what I've noticed, it's not physical pain. You can't get this from working out. Unfortunately, you can really only get it by childhood trauma, childhood experiences, and then adult trauma and experiences, and then the spiritual awakening and being able to see some of the negative aspects of reality. That is where pain comes from. And so the first three things you can't really control unless you just want to be an asshole and divorce your wife or something like that. But the fourth thing you can control, and what I advocate for on this channel, first of all, take a walk without headphones. Observe. Go into your backyard. Think. Write about objects. If you cannot see properly, if you're not connected with the environment, the region around you, with your own backyard, with the things that exist with you every single day, then why the hell would we want to read your novel about a million different things? If you can't smash those things, the most familiar things, then how are you going to smash something that's ephemeral in your head? This abstract spiritual idea. You're not, and you're going to fail. This is the worst thing. This is the one thing that is forgotten in artistic training. And it's not like it can be taught, but you can't force someone to go sit outside. This is what a lot of older poets and a lot of the old training used to be, because when you're in a classroom, you can't be like, all right, you leave and go sit there. But, mentorship, that's what they would say, go to a cabin in the woods for a couple weeks and don't do anything except write and just observe. If you spent a couple months doing nothing, not even writing, but just observing nature, walking around, trying to see more clearly, trying to understand the laws, the spiritual laws of reality in your own context without any help, that would do more for you than any MFA program would. It's easy to learn writing techniques, writing hacks, but it's near impossible in the modern world to find the time, the space, and the motivation to do that. If you want to take your writing to the next level, you need to do something like that. And not as extreme as that, but even just an hour a day outside, 2 hours a day. That's why I've committed myself to desert poetry, because every single day I go walk out into the desert and write poems, or sometimes just sit there. It's like a 2-for-1 special. I'm getting spiritual energy and connecting with nature, and I get to write. And so I believe in every single one of my soul jaws out there. You guys got this. And once again, if you guys want to know the path of what to do once you have your writing, I have a free program out there in the description below, school.com/writeconscious. And I will see you guys over there or in the next video very soon.